What's going on, agents? It's LtBuzzLitebeer, and I hope you are all doing well out there and staying safe. This is the third and final part of this series of responses to a Division 2 Reddit questionnaire concerning a possible upcoming update, and just in case you missed Episode 1 or Episode 2, I will leave links to both of those episodes in the video description below. And as always, if you like this kind of dedicated Division content, please take just a second to smash that sub button, and don't forget to click on the bell icon to receive all notifications from my YouTube channel. And with that out of the way, let's get started. Okay, as I already mentioned, this is the third video I am creating as a response to the Reddit thread created by Joker Unique, directed at a post-Title Update 9, possibly Title Update 10 Division environment. Now, this important thread contains some very specific questions to the community concerning topics relevant to the overall state of the game and was broken into 3 categories. In today's video, I will be reviewing and providing answers to the third topic of build diversity. The first topic in this discussion was a rather broad question of, where do you see improvements for build diversity? And as a player that uses a full complement of builds, I think I can offer up some helpful suggestions. The first steps towards correcting and promoting build diversity were already taken when the best in slot gear pieces of the Fox's Prayer knee pads, Contractor's gloves, and Hollow Man mask all had their respective values nerfed. However, there's still a lot of work to be done in this facet of the game. Through the gradual changes over the past updates, critical hit chance and critical hit damage has become the clear best-in-class attribute, and with that, any gear or weaponry that increases these 2 attributes is highly sought after. Now, this move towards crit has greatly reduced the effectiveness of headshot damage and has diminished the need for pinpoint accuracy. Likewise, skill build users have seen a gradual reduction of many of their favorite pieces and techniques, and as a whole, with the exception of a few skill damage outliers, this whole skill build concept is not what it once was. So what can be done to promote build diversity in this current crit-heavy meta? Well, first, headshot damage needs to be changed back to its former values, which will promote agents aiming for headshots and speccing into accuracy. Next, crit needs to be reduced, just a bit, either by its overall multiplicative damage gains or in the overall total values that can be found on gear and mods. Weaponry needs a good balance pass, as it is clear that rifles and light machine guns are the strongest weapons in the game, with everything else falling far behind. In particular, shotguns and SMGs are not what they need to be and should be at the top of the list for re-evaluations. Now, this is not a matter of reducing all rifles and LMGs, but more so an issue that every other weapon archetype needs to have their damage outputs increased. And finally, skill builds need to have their damage levels looked into, as they feel a bit weak to me, and perhaps a 10 to 15% increase across the board is needed. Moving on to the next discussion point in this thread, with that being, what were the reasons you did not try a healer or a more support tank oriented build? And the answer to this one is really quite simple, because it's not needed for the content we have available. Full damage builds consisting of all red attributes spec'd into crit and paired with a rifle or LMG work just fine for every piece of content up to and including heroic level missions. Now, I personally like to use my crowd control, healer, shield tank, and even my flame status effect build, but in reality they aren't really needed for any of the missions, and in my case, I'm actually probably slowing the squad down. Only when I move up to legendary difficulty do I really start to consider using something other than a straight DPS build. Now, the way the game and missions are designed puts a premium on damage output, and it minimizes the need for a dedicated healer or crowd control build. When an entire squad is running full DPS builds, they can literally melt their way through mobs before they are engulfed and forced to take cover from the amount of incoming damage. The next topic of, what tools, gear sets, or talent changes would you like to see or do you need to try something else is all red everything, and it's really a continuation of the previous topic. Now, starting off with the gear sets, and I personally use a full skill damage hardwired build and 2 True Patriot builds, one for the Dark Zone and another for a full tank shield build. However, I think that the gear sets as a whole offer an agent nothing more than they can find in normal brand sets. Ongoing Directive is entertaining, but the fact that you can only pick up 30 rounds of hollow point ammo at a time, and I can gain much more status effects using other brand sets, holds me back from using this gear set. Hardwired still works well, but I missed the older version of this gear set, as it now requires you to constantly detonate your active skill in order to refresh your alternate skill. True Patriot still has quite a bit of value, but the recent nerf to the white armor regen buff has knocked down this gear set a couple of notches. Negotiator's Dilemma is currently popular with the player base, but when you look at the reasons why, it is because of the crit bonuses and how strong crit truly is. I mean, this is essentially a hybrid Sentry's Call crit build gear set. I've also experimented with Tip of the Spear quite a bit, but with the nerfs to signature weapon damage, it really negates much of what this gear set is about. Striker's battle gear has gone through so many issues ever since it was reintroduced to the Division franchise, and those are well documented. I mean, when a damage stacking gear set is not able to correctly register and stack the enemy strikes, that is a non-starter for any agent. Aces and Eights, a favorite of Dark Hours raid completionists, was hit hard with its current rework, and I don't really see anyone using it anymore. In addition, a well-built rifle build can out-DPS this once formidable gear set. And finally, System Corruption is really designed towards PvP players, and although I do have a full setup with this gear set, I never use it in the Dark Zone. So now that we've covered the deficiencies in the gear sets, what can be done about it? And I think at the heart of this issue is how brand sets and the current meta are currently combined. Brand sets like Providence, Grupo Sombra, and exotic pieces like the Coyote's Mask, in tandem with rifles and gear mods, all offer up players huge offerings of crit, which we already know is extremely strong. All weapon damage can be stacked on all 6 gear pieces, and multiplicative damage can be added in through gear talents like Glass Cannon or damage to targets out of cover. Now my point being, this combination of crit and weapon damage is just so strong. Now take a look at the gear sets, and for the sake of argument, exclude Hardwired, which is tailored for skill build users, and True Patriot, which is really designed for tank and sustain. As you take a look down the list of remaining gear sets, they all seem to offer up alternatives to a full damage brand set, but in reality, they just can't compete. Only Negotiator's Dilemma is currently viable, and even then, it is due to the fact that it is built around crit. All the current gear sets need to receive a balance pass, and their damage output levels need to be compared to those of an all-red DPS crit build. If they are found lacking, then they need to receive a buff to even them out. And finally, if you look at what these remaining gear sets specialize in, they all seem to have some sort of internal restraint holding them back. Tip of the Spear features signature weapon damage, but this weapon type has had its output reduced. Aces and Eights is a shell of its former self, and Striker seems to build and lose stacks for all the wrong reasons. My point being, if you want agents to use the bulk of these gear sets, then they need to 1. Work properly, and 2. Be capable of delivering damage on par with the aforementioned all-red DPS build. Moving along, and the next topic is, why do you use exotics and named items, and why not? I think this is a really straightforward answer, because in most cases, they are the best in class. Even with the recent nerfs, the Hollow Man, Contractor's Gloves, and Fox's Prayer knee pads are still extremely strong. The Nemesis, Eagle Bearer, Chatterbox, and Bullet King are all strong exotic weapons that bring some sort of interesting mechanic to my builds. I also frequently use the Coyote's Mask, Sweet Dreams, and Diamondback just to change things up, and overall they are decently balanced. I also dabble with the Sacrifice Body Armor and the Orbit Magnum for obvious reasons. I mean, I've even got some interesting pieces just sitting in my cache for when their respective buffs will be on par with the current meta. For me, the only reason I would not use an exotic or named item is if it were underperforming and would actually be hurting my build concept. Since I am a huge fan of skill builds, this next topic of what skills do you like to use and why not is a topic that I could probably make into an entire video series by itself. Now, I personally gravitate towards skills that have a quick deployment time and are automated. This way, I am free to fire my weapon and provide callouts to my squad while my skill is able to inflict damage without me controlling it. With this in mind, I don't really use the Bombardier drone or airburst seeker mines as they require too much manipulation to get activated and on target. Now, if they were more automated and had a self-targeting system, I would probably use them much more. In terms of skills that I do like using, I would definitely lean towards the Blinder Firefly, Cluster Seeker Mines, all variants of the Ballistic Shield, Pulse, Drone, mostly for healing, Chem Launcher, Hive, and Turret. Although as of late, the turret is really starting to annoy me, as it is not capable of self-targeting and will let NPCs wander within inches of it, while it targets a destroyed RC car or an NPC who is on the other side of the room and behind cover. But overall, I think there is a nice complement of skills in the game, ranging from tanks to heals and damage to crowd control, and really most things in between. If anything, I would like to see the skills I mentioned earlier become more automated. And the seeker and turret auto-targeting systems really need to be revamped. There is nothing worse than lobbing out your seeker mines only to see them target a ghost and detonate next to nothing. And we made it to the final question for this topic, which reads, what specializations do you like to use and why not? And much like the skill topic, I've got to say that I use them all. They each have intensive talents and skill trees that benefit both squad and solo players alike. I also like the fact that they don't force a player into choosing a specific weapon archetype, as I compare whatever I want with whatever specialization I prefer. As a whole, the talents are well suited towards each specialization and help promote that particular playstyle. If anything, and if I were diving into the specializations as a whole, the only real issue I have with them is that their respective signature weapons are just far too weak. I can fire multiple grenade launcher rounds at a veteran NPC on Heroic and they just smile and keep coming right at me, and I feel that really detracts from the whole aura of the specialized weapon. They used to hit extraordinarily hard, and that was their attraction, right? We would save up our specialized ammo for certain portions of missions, and I think that once they were nerfed across the board, they really became backpack candy more than anything. I find that I almost never switch over to my specialized weapons anymore, as my standard rifle or LMG can easily out DPS them, and that's just a real shame. If they could be brought back to their former glory, I feel the player base would view that as a change for the better. I think this is a good place to wrap up this series, and I really appreciate you sticking with me as I broke down all 3 topics. As always, I'm looking forward to reading your thoughts in the comment section below. If you haven't done so already, please smash that sub button, and don't forget to click on the bell icon to receive all notifications from my YouTube channel. If you liked the video, rate it with a fat thumbs up, if not, with a thumbs down. If you feel like supporting me and my full-time YouTube content creation, please check in the video description for links to my Patreon and Teespring merchandise store. Follow me on Twitter for all my latest thoughts on most things gaming related, with a heavy emphasis on the Division franchise. And until my next upload, this is LtBuzzLitebeer, signing off.